Total sentence would be 60 years to life in prison.
When Nipsey Hussle tragically passed away in March 2019, Eric Holder Jr. was accused of intentionally ending his life. But because there were so many unexpected challenges and setbacks in his court case, it didn't come to a close until last year. So why exactly was the legal drama delayed for so long after Eric was arrested? The truth about what the final verdict was in his trial and why it took years to even begin is honestly bizarre, so let's get into it. According to CNN, Ermias Asketam, better known as Nipsey, passed away on March 31st, 2019. He had been fatally wounded during an incident involving firearms, which had taken place outside of his clothing store, The Marathon. Vulture reported that the next day, the Los Angeles Police Department released Eric's name and identified him as a suspect in Nipsey's passing. Thanks to helpful tips from the public, authorities tracked him down 2 days later in a totally different neighborhood than the one he lived in. Eric was arrested after cops found him hiding out in a motel, which was about a 30-minute drive from the scene of the crime. The following month, NPR revealed that Eric had been indicted by a grand jury, which meant that the case was slated for trial. However, just a couple of weeks earlier, Eric's lawyer, Christopher Darden, had made a surprising announcement. He admitted that he wouldn't be representing Eric anymore for a truly unbelievable reason. Christopher explained that he and his family members had been receiving very serious threats. Apparently, there were a lot of people who were upset that he was going to be defending the man who had been accused of ending Nipsey's life. According to BET, Eric's trial was originally scheduled to begin in April 2020. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was postponed until 2021. The trial was delayed again when the judge who had initially been assigned to handle the case decided to retire. However, it ended up being postponed yet again, and the reason why was seriously crazy. It turns out that Eric had completely refused to exit his jail cell, which caused the start of the trial to be delayed once more. But at the time, that wasn't the only way that he had been displaying pretty bizarre behavior. According to the New York Daily News, Eric had filed a request in hopes of having his bail reduced in April 2021. He asked the judge to decrease his $6.5 million bail, which he believed was extremely high. But the reasons why he thought his bail was unnecessarily steep were absolutely insane. In the paperwork that Eric submitted when he made his request to attempt to have his bail lowered, he claimed that he wasn't a danger to the general public. He also argued that because a lot of his family members lived in the area and he didn't have a passport, he wasn't a flight risk either. Not surprisingly, the judge did not grant Eric's bail reduction request. He denied it the same month it was filed, so he probably didn't spend much time, if any, even considering cutting Eric some slack. After all, the arguments he'd made in his filing were ridiculously hard to believe. Eric had pleaded not guilty to charges claiming that he had used 2 different firearms at the same time to intentionally end Nipsey's life. He also denied that he had injured 2 other men at the scene while recklessly discharging the firearms. However, there was footage from an outdoor security camera that showed the entire tragic incident. Since it had taken place in the middle of the day, not only was Eric visible in the video, but so were his impulsive, disturbing actions that directly resulted in Nipsey's passing. Why on earth would Eric think that the judge would actually take his word and believe that he wasn't dangerous? His claim that he wasn't a flight risk wasn't the least bit convincing. Eric's reasons were that he had relatives that lived in the community, as well as the fact that he didn't have a passport. But both of those were completely irrelevant and unrelated, considering that he had already fled the crime scene and tried to hide from police. The woman who had driven Eric away from the scene turned herself in as soon as she saw the news and realized what he had done. She claimed that when he got into her car, he instructed her to drive and said that he would physically harm her if she didn't. Eric desperately wanted to get away from the area before he was arrested and had even threatened someone so that they would assist in his escape. If he had somehow been able to afford to bail himself out of jail after that, the chances of him staying in the area probably would have been slim to none. According to Fox 11 Los Angeles, Eric's trial finally started in the middle of June 2022. But what his lawyer, Aaron Jansen, revealed during his opening statement was seriously surprising. Believe it or not, Aaron admitted that Eric had used 2 firearms to purposely end Nipsey's life. However, he said that even though his client had acted in the heat of passion, the charges that he was facing were too extreme. But what happened next was absolutely shocking. NBC4 Los Angeles reported that 2 weeks after the trial started, it was delayed again for a truly bizarre reason. Aaron revealed that while Eric was waiting to be taken to the courtroom, he had been placed in a holding cell at the jail, while several other inmates were also waiting. Eric ended up being physically harmed by a group of the inmates, and the injuries he suffered during the incident were pretty serious. His attorney claimed that after Eric was taken to a nearby hospital, he underwent imaging scans and received stitches to close a wound on the back of his head. As a result of Eric's injuries and his visit to the hospital, he wasn't able to make it to court that morning. The trial resumed the following day, but less than a week later, it was almost time for the jury to decide whether or not they believed Eric was guilty. Fox 11 Los Angeles reported that during Aaron's closing argument, he claimed that Eric had reacted impulsively after Nipsey allegedly called him out for snitching. He added that being publicly accused of snitching by someone as famous as Nipsey Hussle had simply caused Eric to become emotionally overwhelmed. However, Deputy District Attorney John McKinney argued that Eric had time to calm down since he left the area after his conversation with Nipsey. But then, he made the choice to return and use his firearms to end Nipsey's life for what he believed was a completely different reason. The district attorney said that Eric had been envious of Nipsey's success for years. They had grown up in the same area, and both of them were aspiring rappers. But while Nipsey rose to fame and became a neighborhood hero, Eric remained unsuccessful, which only made his jealousy worse. John McKinney added that Eric's motive for ending Nipsey's life had almost nothing to do with whatever they had talked about earlier. He expressed that Eric's decisions during and immediately following the incident were very significant. John McKinney also argued that the severity of the incident only proved that Eric's heartless actions were due to his own personal issues. He said that Eric's pre-existing jealousy over the fact that Nipsey was a successful artist and also loved the community ultimately led him to end Nipsey's life. According to NPR, the trial was officially over in July 2022. The jurors discussed the verdict for 6 hours before they were ready to reveal it in the courtroom. They found Eric guilty of ending Nipsey's life and of attempting to end the lives of 2 bystanders who had been injured during the incident. After more than 3 years, the case had finally come to an end. The only thing left was Eric's sentencing hearing, which didn't take place until several months later. The Associated Press reported that in February 2023, the judge sentenced Eric to 60 years to life in prison. For ending Nipsey's life, he received 25 years to life, plus another 25 years for a firearm sentencing enhancement. Eric was also handed a 10-year sentence for injuring 2 bystanders while discharging his firearms. It's highly likely that Eric is going to spend the rest of his life behind bars as a result of his senseless, cold-hearted actions that caused Nipsey to tragically pass away. But now that we've gotten into why his trial was delayed for so long and what happened throughout the case, I want to know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on the bizarre reason why Eric's trial kept being postponed, like his refusal to leave his jail cell? Do you think that his total prison sentence of 60 years to life was fair? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments below.